Hello there, welcome to Texas Style Barbecue and Cuisine. I'm Chef Johnny. Today we're making up Super Bowl snacks, and that's going to be our hashtag, so follow that around. Find the other YouTube channels that are doing snacks for the big game. I'm going to be doing a queso dip this morning using a couple of fresh cheeses. I got some roasted poblano peppers, a lot of different things going in it. It's going to be a good one, so stick around and see how I make it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make up a roux. I'm just going to add some oil to my pan here. Oh, I'd say 2 or 3 tablespoons. Add about the same amount of flour. Drop that in. Take my whisk it together real good. You want just enough oil to dissolve your flour. We're not going to make this a dark roux. We're just cooking it long enough to get the raw taste out of the flour. And this is just going to help us make a little bechamel sauce in a moment. That looks good. I'm going to set it off to the side. Get my skillet up here. Put it on. Start heating it up. And I'm going to saute up some of my vegetables that are going in here. Again, a little bit of oil. Let that start heating up. And the first thing I'm going to put in is I have some onions. I have a nice white onion, about 1/4 of a small onion. Altogether, I probably have 3/4 of a cup, maybe a cup. But what I'll have to go with it is I have a bunch of green onions. So I took the bunch, cut the tips off, used the white parts, part of the green. The rest of the green I'm going to use for some garnish up on top of our queso once we get it in the pan. But let's drop these in. Cook these down, start getting them soft. Now, to my onions, while they're cooking, just to get some flavor in them, I'm going to use some fajita season. Y'all know me, Boulder's Fiesta brand. I like it. I think it's a great one, but just kind of put a depth of flavor in these onions, and we'll start layering those flavors in this dip. Probably turn the heat down just a little bit. Keep trying to get these nice and soft. Onions are getting nice and soft. I'm going to drop some roasted poblano pepper on top of that. And you could use whatever type of pepper you like. If you wanted to use a New Mexico chili, Anaheim's, whatever, but roast them. And I've got a video on roasted peppers. I'll put down below a link so you can follow it. Adds a whole lot of flavor to this dip if you use the roasted ones. You can buy roasted ones if you want to, or you can just buy the regular green peppers in a can that aren't roasted. But I like them roasted. I think it adds a nice dimension to it. And this was one great big poblano. You might use a couple of smaller ones maybe. But it's already soft and tender. I'm just going to cook it in and kind of let these flavors meld together with the onions for a minute. Now on top of those, I've got 2 Roma tomatoes diced up kind of small. And I'm not going to cook these all the way down. I want to leave them where they kind of stay a little bit firm because they're going to be in a hot cheese, so they're going to continue to break down and cook. Keep these moving around in there. And just kind of start these tomatoes to cooking, then we'll get them off. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to move it off to the side, set my roux back up here. Tablespoon of roux will thicken about a cup of milk, so I'm going to come in here and add about 1.5 cups of milk. I'm just going to keep stirring this and thickening my roux. It's looking pretty good. Turn the heat down some. Be careful you don't scorch it. I think that roux will hold a little more, kind of making like a cream sauce is what I'm doing. Just getting it started. Canned milk works great for this. Got a lot of richness to it if you wanted to use a canned milk in this, but that works really good also. But once it comes back up to almost a boil, it'll start thickening again. And we'll have our sauce about ready to start adding our cheese. I'm gonna transfer my cream sauce into my bigger pan so I got more room when I start making my cheese here. All that out. Just out of the way. And it doesn't bother me that I've got some of my tomatoes and stuff already in there. That's going to be incorporated anyways. So if you wanted to wipe out that pan and start over again, more than welcome to, but it's all going to be mixed again in a minute, so it didn't bother me at all. Turn down my heat some, and I'm going to start adding in some of my cheese. I've got about, probably 2.5 cups of shredded American cheese here. American's a little creamier. It's going to melt a little bit better, so that's why I like using it. But we're going to put that in. Get that stirred in. You don't want to get it too hot, because if you do, you start breaking down your cheeses and separating those oils and stuff out. That's never a good thing. So there's my first bit of my cheese in, my sauce. Now I've got, about the same amount of cheddar. It's a sharp cheddar. It's a Tillamook. And I tell you what I did was I grated all this myself. Grate it yourself. You're going to like it a lot better. Grated cheese has chemicals added to it to help it hold up and not break down. So doesn't cook up quite as nice. Doesn't taste quite as nice. But if you'll do it like this, grade your own, you're going to be a lot happier with your cheese sauce. But you can tell this is melting down fine in there. It's getting a nice thick. Now remember, also you want it thinner when it's hot, because once it gets cool, it's going to start thickening up on you. So always make your sauce a little bit thinner than you want it. You want it to realize when it cools down, what thickness do you want it at there. So you can look here, look at that. Oh yeah, we're starting to get a cheese sauce I like right there. Now to season it, I'm going to add some of my Bollner's Fiesta brand in there. Give me a little amount of it up on top. Let's work this pepper and salt and garlic and all the nice herbs they have in that fajita seasoning. But you can see this is starting to come together well. Move my whisk out of the way. Take my tomatoes and my peppers and my onions, drop those back in there. That's going to add a lot of flavor back to our cheese dip. That's looking pretty. See all those colors starting to run through there? That's what you like to see. I've got the red and the green. You can see them spreading through that real well. Now, there's different ways you could increase the heat on this, different things you want to do. You could, add a little cayenne pepper, different things like that too. But what we like to do is we like to use Rotel. And this is just the Rotel with green chilies. It's the original. You could use the medium. You could use the mild. You get the hot. This is just the regular one. So remember, don't get your cheese too thin, because you're going to have some water with this Rotel that's going to go in there. But that's going to add us some more flavor. It's going to add some heat to this also. So now we're starting to look pretty here. Look here. And again, remember, this will thicken as it cools. I'm going to get one of my chips and taste it. Now remember, people are going to be eating this cheese dip with chips. So you want to sample it on a chip, because if your salt level's right off of a spoon, then you put it on a salty chip, what's going to happen? You're going to have a salty dip. So know what it tastes like on the chip that's already has salt on it. Oh, that's a good cheese dip. I'm going to add a little more seasoning to it. Adjusted my spices a little bit. Get another chip, give another try. Queso dip on the shirt. That tastes pretty good right there. Let me show you how we're going to plate this up. I'm going to move my stove over to the side. I've got a nice big tray platter to put this on with chips. And what I'm going to serve this in is in one of my my Lodge cast iron skillets. Remember, as this cools, it's going to thicken. You don't want it to get too thick, especially if it's a cool day out. So you can keep some of yours on the stove, keep it going where it's staying warm. And the one you're serving, if you'll use a cast iron pan, cast iron is great about holding heat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it on the stove. Now this is just a little plastic tray I'm putting it on. So I'm not going to get it hot enough that it could damage my tray, but I am going to warm this skillet up. Okay, that's nice and hot. It's not, it's not too hot. It's not going to melt my plastic tray, but I'm going to set it right in the middle. Now take my cheese dip, pour it into my cast iron skillet, which the inside of it's hot, but the bottom side wasn't. So that's going to keep it good and warm. That's ready to go right there. If you wanted to step this up a little bit, boy, you could put your scoop of chopped brisket right there in the middle where they could dip into the brisket and get the cheese also. That's a great way to do it. For me today, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some Pico de Gallo. I have some nice fresh pico here. Some pretty cilantro leaves with it. I'm going to sit that right in the middle. And remember those green onions we had a while ago? Take some of those. Sprinkle those around on top. I sliced the green tips kind of small so that they would look pretty. So there you have it. A great cheese dip for the game. If you're tailgating, make it before you go. Have it here at the house for the game. However you want to do it, it's going to be great. Remember to check out the other channels that's doing this collab today. And it's Super Bowl Snacks is the hashtag. I'll put it down below so that you can find it. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed my queso dip this morning. And we're going to see y'all down the road on Texas style barbecue and cuisine.
How them boys put food away beats all I've ever seen.